Hey friends, this is part 6 of my video series I'm doing on public education and why I think personally that it is one of the most, if not the most important issue right now because of how it intersection with all the other issues and how much it affects so many things that we care about. I did make, there's 5 other parts to this. Part 4, actually, I had to make a second video because it got so long. So technically, I have posted 6 videos so far. The longest one, part 4, was like 20 minutes, and all the others are, half of them are less than 10 minutes, and the others are, I'm trying to make them around 15 minutes. So I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to get right into it. This part 6, please go back and watch the others, because when I've talked about the, why I care about this issue, why, how investing in public education, it actually, the statistics and data of how it impacts other things and public spending is remarkable, that we don't know more about that. I talk about the purpose and how there are some things that we just may not be aware of, that, some people like to just vote straight party. And so the people that are on the State Board of Education, nobody knows who they are. They're not somebody that's not an election where people have name recognition necessarily, and it's not an office that if somebody is politically motivated, they're not going to run for that after they've already done something else. They're going to move on. So actually, they're people that don't usually have more than 1 or 2 terms on that, and it's kind of like being on the school board. It's not necessarily glamorous, and there's actually a lot of lawyers on the State Board of Education, but there are some teachers, and there's a mix of quite a few, like businessmen and things like that. What I want to say about this and why you need to care is because of the recent ruling here in Texas. State Board of Education decided to add the Bible to the list of approved reading literature, and they've also approved a Bluebonnet curriculum. They've also approved charter school contracts. They have been involved in approval of testing materials. They approve the requirements for certification and employment requirements in education. There a lot of things that need approval are done through the State Board of Education. And because those people don't have name recognition, and because they need money for campaigns, typically what's been happening in the last few decades is that because there are, and this is just fact because you can follow the numbers. You can see the candidate and their campaign and who gave to their campaign, and then you can see what their you can see what's been coming out of the State Board of Education. It is public record. So if you match puzzle pieces together, you're going to see the big picture is that there are rich billionaires, and this is not a shame video. My purpose is not to shame people and bully anyone. I want to just get this information out there for us to all understand and to be more informed civic humans that care about our children and need to be aware of how our children are being treated like a commodity. They're being treated for profit because there's 3 billionaires in particular. One of them, he's not even in Texas, but he is very wealthy. He has a charter schools, and he gave millions of dollars to Abbott, our governor, and other state reps and State Board of Education candidates to get them elected so that he could then have them approve the charter school contracts. And he profits off of that. And what's been happening for the last couple of decades is the goal has been to make testing harder because we are supposedly raising standards. But then we also decrease funding because we make schools look bad. When you see them being negative towards schools, I would encourage you to actually question that and find out, well, what's going on the other side of that. There is some legitimately problem things happening in education. But I wouldn't be so quick to blame the school as much as it may be how they're handling the issues. But I would look deeper at funding and how we keep voting for people that have been in office. The Republicans have been in office in Texas. They've been in control of every part of government and anything that affects public education. Any office in Texas that affects and makes decisions around public education has been controlled by Republicans for 30 years. And so when they get on the ads and complain, it boggles my mind that they say we're going to fix it now and they're going to make teachers happy by giving raises. But honestly, teachers are just tired, so they're tired of fighting, and we need other people. We need parents. We need other people to stand up and say, hey, hold on a minute. And I'm not saying that I'm going to change your mind. I want you to just be informed of all of the information so that you might make a decision for yourself. Because what the State Board of Education, so if you have a candidate that gets $300,000 for his campaign for State Board of Education, and all of his constituents are already, the majority is already Republican, he doesn't need a lot of money. But if he is somebody that is going against what these other candidates are saying, well, we want to approve this charter, and maybe one person's like, well, I don't think that's a good idea. It doesn't look like they have sound business practices. And he's going to get outvoted. And he's going to get primaried, or they're going to pull his campaign funding, because unless you vote with them, you have no power. So that's the problem we have now, is that people are just approving contracts or curriculum because, well, for one, it's money. The other issue is because of wrong propaganda about what's actually going on in schools. And people are listening to these hyperbolic things like having litter boxes in classrooms, and that because you read a book about a kid that had two moms, then we're somehow turning kids gay. Listen, I understand that people are going to have a wide opinion about some of these topics, especially related to same-sex couples in books with children, and they're going to also be upset about things like transgender athletes, and these are some of the hot topics, or CRT or SEL, or any of these hot topics in education right now. And what I can promise you is that there are 1,200 school districts in Texas, and there's not one documented case of a teacher having a litter box in a classroom for real. And yet they had somebody bring a bill forward to try to, outlaw this invisible, imaginary problem. And we're wasting time on things like that. There was, quite a few years ago, there was the deal with the bathrooms. And listen, I think it is always appropriate for parents to advocate for their kids when they think something is wrong. I think it is always appropriate for us to stand up for kids and what we think is best. I'm not disagreeing with that. The problem is when we're not informed, or we're not an expert, and we're just reacting emotionally off of some headline, or because one candidate said in this other place that they were having this issue. That doesn't mean it's happening in your school or even in Texas. So what I want to tell you is that there are bad people in every industry. So yeah, there's some bad teachers. Yeah, there's some bad politicians. And I think that we need to call them out. And I think we need to definitely get back to the basics, but stop with this idea. We are funneling negativity and money towards the State Board of Education that's making these decisions for our kids that are not what's best for education. Kids need to play and not be focused on testing. Kids need to not be distracted by all of this silliness with banning books. Yeah, I think parents should be aware of what books they're reading to a certain point. I think that we as parents need to give our kids more agency and autonomy to trust that, if we have conversations about hard things or difficult things or maybe issues that you don't agree with, having a conversation doesn't mean they're going to become in agreement with that opposite side of you. And it also doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily become criminals or do something wrong. Just because somebody has a lifestyle that you don't agree with, or you might even think that it's a sin, you can have your beliefs. But I can promise you, the majority of people that are on the opposite side of the issue, whatever issue it is, I could sit here and name 10 issues, and we could talk about the people that are, I know people probably on both sides of that issue. And I would sit here in all honesty and say, I know good people on both sides of pretty much every issue. Am I going to agree with them? No. And am I going to think that they're maybe not informed? Yes. I think not being informed on the issue is part of the problem. When we're not willing to see a different person's perspective from another angle. And I would say that's why I'm making this series, but going back to State Board of Education, TEA, and the governor, the reason that we need to know how these things work is so that we can understand who we need to actually be mad at. Because what I see is that, like last year, or maybe it was the year before, the state representatives took phones out of schools. And just in the school district where I teach, I know there was tons of parents mad on their social media and getting mad at the school district, and we're like, this was a state decision. Who are you mad at? And then when parents come at teachers about things like testing and curriculum, listen, you can be mad at a teacher. I'm not saying you can't. I have been that parent. I think I talked about this in another video where, you know what? I call up a teacher. I would be in their inbox. I would be in the principal's office advocating for my kid if the teacher is being unfair. But I'm going to give that teacher the benefit of the doubt and try to have a conversation about it instead of just attacking them and blaming them for all the problems. Because the majority of the teachers are just trying to do their job. And it's mentally taxing what is being required of us. So now, as a school counselor, I'm more on the administration side of things. But I'm kind of in that in-between place because kids don't see me when they're in trouble. But I see the emotion behind some of these behavior issues, actually behind all of them. And I see that kids just want to play and have fun and be loved. And you know what? They want to be smart and they want to learn. And we are taking away the tools they need for success because we're so divided and so just uninformed about where the problems are. If we want to actually fix the problems, we need to stop blaming teachers. We need to stop yelling at the schools. We need to just get more involved in the schools. And we need to pay more attention to this process of how school funding works and who is it that's making the decisions. Okay, like today, Supreme Court made some decisions, and you know what? You're not going to go call up your local school board mad about what the Supreme Court did. So this is what I'm saying is you need to, if you don't understand how these decisions are being made, it's time to speak up about campaign financing in Texas And that's a problem. And then we need to really consider who we're voting for, even in the lesser known races. They really do affect, especially things that affect your local schools. There are quite a few offices at the state level, even like railroad commissioner, believe it or not. There's several statewide political seats that affect public education, and we need to be more aware of the decisions that they're making. So stay tuned for the next. I don't know when I'll make the next one, but there's going to be. I have a few more branches of this tree that I would like to talk about.